What do you do when you realize that your entire career, that thing that you've been working your ass off to develop, doesn't make you happy? How do you make the change? What does the change look like? And what does that do for you and your family on the other side? What's up, Active Lifers? Welcome back to the Active Life Podcast. I'm Dr. Sean Pastuch. I'm your host. Today, I'm interviewing Scott Schratwieser, who I have known for years to be an excellent trainer, an excellent connector of people, and I'm very excited for him to share with you how he's gone from being a very successful trainer working at Equinox to somebody running a business all of his own in the vision of what he wants his life to look like. I think you're going to be inspired by the interview. I think you're going to learn a lot. When you do, head to wherever you're listening to it. 5-star rating. Write us a review. Share it with a friend. I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Let's get to the show. Scott Schratwieser, welcome to the Active Life Podcast.
You said it right.
Of course I said it right. Do people mess that up?
Sometimes.
What do they say?
Strat with a T. They don't say Schrat. I mean, everyone calls me Schrat, Scott Schrat. And then I always say it's like Budweiser, but Schratwieser. You know?
Okay.
Keep it easy.
Have you ever had somebody ask you, hey, before I say this, I want to make sure I say your name right. Is it? And then you say, no, it's Schratwieser. Like, okay, cool. Got it. Wrote that down. Thank you. And then they say it wrong?
No. I will say, like, when I was a kid, it was so long that, like, on the back of jerseys, they would have to do, like, a -ER, like, a second row.
Okay.
I was small, so, like,
right.
The jersey was small.
Right. I've been on podcasts before where the host will say, I just want to make sure I'm pronouncing your last name right. Is it Pastucci? And I'm like, no, it's Pastuch. I'm like, okay, perfect. I'm glad I didn't say that on air.
Right.
And then they write it down, they push record, and they go, Dr. Sean Pastuch.
They still mess it up.
Yeah. I'm like, what? Yeah. Why did you ask me? But it's like when you ask somebody at a party
what their name is,
and then you forget
like instantly.
Yes,
yeah.
It's because they're focused on wanting to do a good job with everything else, and they forget.
Well, listen, conversation is like that. It doesn't matter. You could be thinking something in your head as someone's talking. It doesn't matter what they're saying. You're still going to say what you're going to say.
Yeah,
you know that happens.
Yeah, when we're poorly managed, especially.
Sure.
So the reason why I was excited to bring you on is I've known you now for what, 6 years, something like that. When Josh brought us to lunch together at the bungalow,
right?
Whatever it was.
7 years.
Yeah. I don't know if you know, I interviewed Josh on this podcast too.
I know. I saw Josh last week. He said, give him hell.
Okay, perfect. So Josh, for those of you listening, Josh is a personal training client of mine. I will write down which episode it was in the show notes. You can listen to that too if you want. Right. Well, there's no real common tie here except that Josh introduced us. Right. He was a personal training client of mine. And I've been able to watch from a relative far, you go from being a successful trainer inside of Equinox to going out on your own and building something all your own that I think a lot of trainers would envy and would want to do if they understood how to do it. And I think that hearing your story of how you went from one to the other will give some people the confidence, whether it's that they're training today or they're just in a job that they hate, to be able to say, okay, I'm worth a different life than this, and I'm going to go get it.
Sure. I think for me, and listen, I never reinvented the wheel, and there were people before me, and there's people after me, and I was lucky enough to have others do it before me. I was also lucky enough to have the pandemic force it out of me. Otherwise, I'm not sure how much I would be pushing to leave. And that's because I was doing so well. So when you're doing well and you think you're at the top of the mountain, why would you change things?
What was doing well? I would love for people to understand really what the life of Scott was like when you were there.
I guess I could start from the beginning.
You don't have to start like my childhood. I played hockey. You don't need that.
Let's say top 100 trainer
at Equinox.
Right? At Equinox.
Okay, that's worldwide.
Worldwide.
And you know that because they told you here's your rank for the year.
Yes, you get your rankings every single month within your club. You get your ranking every single month within the entire Equinox organization. And then at the end of the year, you get however many, sessions you've done, when you're ranking, and you could see where you're at and how many years you've been doing it. And when you hit certain numbers every single year for 5 years straight, you get this nice big check, and you think it's like a big deal, but it's like $5,000. And the grand scheme of things, it's not that much, but a big check looks kind of cool.
Right. And when you've been living your life without that $5,000 and they give you a $5,000 bonus, you're like, this is cool. I can use this on whatever I want.
Without a doubt. So, moving up the ranks there, I was a master instructor there. So
what does that mean?
What a master instructor is it's someone who Equinox has education, right? That's the one greatest thing about Equinox is that I won't talk smack about that. Their education is great. I've learned more throughout the education there than I've probably learned in college, because also the aspect of, you learn it and then you go do it like that day with clients. So you see it happen real quick and you're like, oh my God, this worked. I can't believe it. So as you go up in different tiers within the organization, you have to go through different education, as you may know. And I was one of the master instructors who taught the classes.
So you taught the education to the trainers.
I taught the education to the trainers.
I think that education is actually the reason why Equinox is financially successful in the personal training model. Not only for the acumen that the trainer acquires, but for the temperament that the trainer needs to have in order to stay in the business to go through the education.
Right. They need to show up to class. They need to travel to class. They need to take tests. They need to do work over the course of time. Then you need to hit numbers. Then you need to move up into the next level of class. There's structure to it, and people like structure, and it works. So always looked for myself to take myself out of my comfort zone, and whether it was try and teach a group fitness class too, which was not my cup of tea at all, but I did it, and only basically because there was a class created by a higher tier coach that I liked, Giovanni Rizzelli. And I was like, I think I want to do this class because I like the way it's taught and I like the way it's programmed. So I'm gonna try and ask my client, who is the group fitness manager, and she's like, yeah, come in. And it's a weird concept. It's like group fitness instructors can't be personal trainers, but personal trainers can be group fitness instructors.
That depends on the personal trainer. I'll tell you, I tried doing group fitness at Nassau Community College.
No, we're allowed. Within the company.
That is interesting.
Right? So, and I think that's partly because of you need to, as a group fitness instructor, you have to do a certain amount of classes or teach a certain amount of classes to be a group fitness instructor. And then if there's a sprinkle of a class or two that they need someone to teach, or they feel like they need a certain caliber person to teach it, maybe a group fitness a personal trainer can move in. Maybe I was lucky, maybe not. So I did that, master instructor, and helped create the Tier 3 Plus, which is the higher level tier, and then it goes to Tier X. So I helped create the curriculum for Tier 3 Plus, which was nutrition coaching. So we kind of took precision nutrition. We took a little bit about functional medicine, the Institute of Functional Medicine way. We created the program. We taught the Tier 3 Plus trainers on nutrition coaching, and then they kind of tried to use that as part of the package, and you could sell another different type of package for the Tier 3 Plus coaches. So that's kind of the gist of where I got, and then the pandemic hit.
Well, how many sessions a week were you doing at that point?
Inside Equinox? In addition to teaching, I was doing maybe 30.
So 30 training sessions a week.
And then teaching 5-6 hours.
Right. So that's 50 hours a week of work.
And then what's crazy is this was pre-pandemic, and we were doing Zoom teaching, which was I felt ahead of the game.
For EFTI, you're talking
for
about.
EFTI, because there's only a certain amount of Tier 3 Plus coaches that are moving up.
Right. So they're not going to travel.
They're not going to travel, right? And this was a very new program, so we're getting kids from London, Canada, So we had 50 kids in a class, and I was doing it through Zoom in my office. It felt It felt awesome. It was cool. It was something new for me.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, okay, I still got the teaching. Like, we don't need the gyms to be open, but I could still teach for them. But then they're like, well, you're not, once the gym reopened, right, you're not hitting your numbers because certain clients wouldn't want to come
Personal
in.
training numbers.
Personal training numbers. The thing with Equinox is, like, we were just talking before, your top 5-6 trainers in the club are doing, most of the numbers. It was me, my wife, and a couple of our friends. We're crushing it, banging out tons of numbers. And the lower 20 trainers, we had 26 to 29 trainers. Our club was killing it at the time. And they can churn out a ton of sessions. They should keep pushing us to do more, do more.
I've talked about this so many times.
I'm sure. So,
well, what I'm describing is the manager of the training department is like, these are my horses. These people can get us 4 or 5 more sessions this week. That helps me hit my numbers. But then you have these other 20 people who are doing nothing, still getting part-time pay. And if you could help them just get to full-time, it's a much more sustainable department.
Well, the issue with that is the leadership.
Of course.
The 5 who were churning out numbers had been doing it for 5 years. New management already have come in and churned over like 3 different times. And when you don't have someone, or people don't respect the person in charge because they feel like, well, they've never even been in my situation. They just moved up the ranks as a manager, or they maybe moved up to a certain tier, and then they're like, I don't want to do sessions. I want to be on the managerial side. And then they come in a meeting and they tell you how to do something. You're like, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not in there with me.
Right. A great manager would come in and ask.
Sure.
And you would probably respect them, even if they never trained before. If they came in like, look, I've never been a trainer. I need to understand from the trainer's perspective how you believe we can best do this. And then I'll put it through the wash of what needs to happen for the club. That's how you earn the respect, I think, at least.
100%. The fallback on that was when there is turnover in that leadership position, you start to lose that 20% because maybe you'll get 1 or 2 out of there, and they might, like, one of the top guys might become friends with another guy and kind of mentor them, and they implemented some form of mentorship in there, and that helps, and it could bring one or 2 up. But what happened was the pandemic comes and the first guy leaves, who's been there forever. And he leaves. He's like, most of his clients go with him, if not all. The next guy leaves. And it's like, And I'm in there like, you have to do a floor shift again because you're not doing enough hours. And I'm like, I'm here because my wife's pregnant and I just want insurance right now. And that's kind of what happens. But
they put you back on floor shifts.
And it's like, all right, you got to stay here from 7 to 10 o'clock. I'm like, no way.
Right.
I wake up at 4:15 in the morning for my clients.
Right. And this was a result of a pandemic that had people not coming to the gym. It's not as if your business just took a hit because clients were unhappy with their service.
Correct. Now, mind you, we're years out. We all, in a certain point in time, our clients were like, hey, come to my house, or
of course,
meet me at the park. It was, Summer. Let's go to the park. It could have been that next day after the, March 17th, it stopped, or, a couple of months in. But as soon as that started and we started, racking it on the other side, nothing changed. And we're like, wait a second, we're making double the amount of money in like half the amount of time that I have to be there. So that's kind of how it started formulating. And we had a kid and we left.
Right. Well, I think I'm curious your thoughts on this, because what I've seen happen over and over and over again, whether it's a CrossFit gym, a HIIT studio, or a big commercial gym, is when the gym runs a business where they don't invest in the staff and make it easier for them to do their job and easier for them to be successful, but instead they ride them to be more successful. Like, hey, you're not producing for us. It starts to drive a wedge where it's the staff that now feels as though I'm working for myself. I understand what I need to do to keep you happy, but I'm working for me.
That's exactly what was happening.
And so, right.
For a lot of us.
So now what happens is you're like, what do I owe you? I've been giving you half to 60%.
Years.
And for years with clients who someone else was not going to pick up. And the evidence is right there. I'm doing 30 sessions a week. The next person, like when you look at the bottom 80% of the staff in the gym, they're doing an average of 12. Like it takes the average person 6 months to get to tier 2 and full time if they ever do it. And I'm over here at master instructor teaching people on behalf of the club with a full-time roster. And you're asking more of me.
Right.
I don't want to do this anymore. And then when you leave, there is no loyalty to the business because they drove that wedge of it's not us, it's you. And
there was a lot of, it's like looking back, it's been a couple of years, so I haven't thought about this in a long time. And there was like, you know, we're sitting in the pandemic, we're thinking about that a lot, like what they could have and should have done, right? So I haven't thought about this in a while, but you know, when you're at the club for however many hours, from like 4:45 in the morning till like 6 p.m. at night, because it doesn't make sense to go all the way home for like 45 minutes to drive all the way back up for another 3 sessions or whatever it may be. And then you're teaching and you're up for Master Instructor of the Year, you're getting flown to Miami, and it's like, I don't feel any recognition for what I'm doing. And mind you, my managers, they loved me. We loved everyone in the club, but like that wasn't enough for me. I needed it from the top because I felt like I was within the top. I'm in the top 100. I'm doing great. And, you know, after, you know, so many years passed, I think the thing that they messed up was not going to that top 100 trainers who were churning out and making the most amount of money for the entire business, and said, we're going to give you a piece of the pie. We need you to stick around. It'll vest in, you know, a couple of years. Here's $350,000. It'll, you know, if you stick around with us. Stock options. Keep your clients with us. I bet you more probably would have stayed because they're like, wait a second. This is not even a concept in that industry at all.
Right. And they're publicly traded, yeah?
No.
So how would they have given?
They're owned by Related.
Right, which is publicly traded.
Right.
So they could, I follow.
Right. So, and then there was after the pandemic, there was a lot of talk of like, are they going to be separated to be publicly traded
on their own?
You know, on their own, or are they going to purchase Peloton, or what else are they going to purchase, or you know, or who's going to purchase them, you know? But that's where we felt like, or that's where I kind of felt like they maybe dropped the ball, because I could talk to a bunch of different clients who are big time CEOs, and they're like, this is what we did with our people, and this is what we do in normal time. Like it doesn't matter if it's pandemic or not. And when they do really well, we buy their book, we give them a ton of money, and they do it again. You know, that's different industry, but it's something along that aspect. As a personal trainer, coming out of college, I never thought I could do what I did. I didn't even know I was going to be that. You know, I thought, just like a lot of people, they get, you know, a kinesiology degree or exercise science. You're like, you're going to go through physical therapy, you're going to go to PT school, or I'm going to be a strength and conditioning coach, or because I have my CSCS, and then you fall into now I'm a personal trainer, or I'm a coach at a CrossFit or whatever it is, and you start to make mistakes, and you learn from your mistakes, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, I can't believe I am where I'm at from where I thought I can go. Like I was like graduating college with that degree, and then I'm just a personal trainer, but I'm doing this well. That's how it feels now.
Sure. I think what you described is something I never would have thought of. So it's interesting to hear the idea of them providing stock options into a publicly traded company that vest after 3 years or 5 years or whatever.
Well, that would have kept us.
For sure. What I was more thinking is even more rudimentary than that. Things like, hey, we're not going to put you back on the floor because we understand the circumstances that you're in. Things like, hey, here's some other stuff that we've instituted from the company that allow you to make money in ways you couldn't previously make money in less time, like remote program design options for clients who weren't going to buy personal training or didn't want to come to the gym.
Yeah, but there's minimal of that.
Of course. But there's
that's
minimal
an
of that
hour
now.
a week though. And
What
that's
is?
like the amount of time it would take or the amount of people that would do that. They might be able to sprinkle a few per club. And that's like what, to make $60?
No, what I'm describing is I think that there would have been a market, especially during COVID, for clubs in areas that were very harshly impacted by government policies. If the club itself rolled out hey, you've been coming to the gym, we want to offer you something that we've never offered you before. They give it away the way that they would in Equifit or your first personal training session, your first 3 when you had the right Amex. And they get you working with a trainer where the trainer is not training you online. They're meeting with you, they're educating you, they're providing you a program design online where the trainer can now leverage time.
They had that.
They did have that?
Yeah.
And they couldn't sell it.
No.
Interesting.
And they also used, I'm forgetting the name of the company. It was like also a virtual training platform.
But I think that got in the way of it.
Right.
That was like group fitness on Zoom, but in an app.
Well, not group fitness. It was personal training. It was one-on-one. You had you can click the exercises. The client also sees the exercise. You program prior. You upload the program as it goes into. I'm forgetting the name of the brand. I met the owner, and a lot of TRX trainers also used it.
It wasn't True Coach, was it?
No.
Okay.
No. The guy sold it and went to Mirror, the company Mirror. But it was similar to that.
Okay.
And it's like anything else, dude. If a client's coming in because they want to see you, there's a smaller percentage of clients that want to do it virtually or that enjoy doing it virtually. So it's going to be less money no matter what. But it's something. But it's less.
True. I think I wasn't in their shoes. What I'm describing is creating an environment where we're like, hey, we're on the same side of the table as you. Instead of saying it's pandemic times, we need you to do things as if it wasn't. We understand that it is. We want to help you get through this. Maybe you still would have left. I don't know. All I'm describing is the way I've always experienced them as a business, and I worked there too.
Right.
Before there were rankings, I wish that there were rankings when I was working there.
That's the best part about it.
Yeah, gamify my income.
Right.
For me, the thing that drove me out was the idea that it's always ride the horse to more sessions. Ride the horse to more sessions. So I'm the guy doing 30 sessions a week. I'm like, I don't want to do 35. It's a lot. Get off my back.
I mean, now I'm doing 35 to 40.
For yourself.
For myself.
At probably costs that are higher than what you were charging there.
Yes. And I don't work Saturdays and Sundays.
Right.
For 10 years, I worked on Saturday morning, every morning. I rolled my Jeep 5 times on the Seaford West Bay, singing a song, going in on Saturday morning.
What do you mean you rolled it?
I got in an accident on a Saturday morning. I'll never forget. Obviously, I'll never forget that.
But it rolled over.
Yeah. The scariest moment of my life. And then I knew Sam was my wife when I call her up and it's pouring rain. She's on the Seaford West Bay sprinting towards me, seeing if I'm okay because the ambulance is there and everything. But what I'm saying is I used to have to work 6, sometimes 7 if a client was like, come on, I'm not here all week, just come in on Sunday. Grind it out. And you see the same place every day. And it's like, I don't think I even went home to sleep. That's the feeling you get.
Right. That screwed him in California. I don't know if you saw that or not.
Yeah. What was it about?
It was, look, if I'm speaking as a unbiased party, it was trainers coming together to sue the company because they were working all these unpaid hours.
I got a letter for that. It's like, what are they going to give me $20 extra dollars? I don't need to go in on a class action lawsuit. But listen, that's That's the trainer life. If you want to be real, if you want to get numbers.
Well, what I'm saying is they were paying you for programming time. They were paying you for prospecting time. It just was built into the session pay time.
Sure. And when you first start out and you're making $24,
right,
and you've come off an hourly wage of sorts, and you're like, wow, $25 an hour, that's not bad.
Right.
But like when I first started training athletes, I worked at a physical therapy office, and my boss was like, "Hey, they're done with their insurance is not paying for it anymore. Like rehab for ACLs, take them across the street, get them like in shape enough that they're not hesitant, you know, with their braces and stuff like that. What do I charge? I don't know, $50, you know." And that was at that point in time. This was 2011, 2010. Right. You know,
it was still too low.
At that point in time, quickly did I move up.
Right.
But after, it was almost like each summer I would just make it more. Or every next package that I sold, I would change it on the computer. Like, this is what it is now. They don't know how much it is.
Right.
And I'm still doing that to this day. You know?
Well, what are you doing now? Like, because there was a good background of why you stopped doing what you were doing when you were doing it successfully. Sure. What are you doing now?
Now, I am doing. I don't love calling myself a personal trainer because why? I feel like I do so much more than the condensation or the thought of what a personal trainer is from people who are in this field. I mean, listen, everyone listening is that, and they understand that why. But what I mean is I do so much more than just count numbers and tell people what to do and work out in a workout. Like lift that weight, do this lunge. No, I do so much more than that. I help guide them. I'm like a facilitator of health.
How so?
Getting to know every single client, the ins and outs, bring value to every single session. And by bring value, that means whether it could be anything. Like they might be quiet in the beginning and I'm like, this isn't who they are. What's up? Just asking the right questions, you know, open-ended questions to get them to talk and learning who the client really is, what gets them going, what gets them motivated. And then, you know, I'll give you an example. I don't even have to be around certain clients. And listen, I hate talking about myself in this aspect.
Well, you're on a podcast.
I am, yeah. So there you go. Client would be like, "Oh, you would be so proud of me." We were out to dinner with a bunch of friends, and like my friend asked me why I ordered this, and it's because of you. I thought about it. I just thought, what would make Scott proud when I, you know, have food here? Or I'll be down in Florida visiting a client, and I'll go out to eat with his top executives, and just me being there because they know he's the CEO and I'm his trainer. What they eat at the table is different, or how they act at the table is different because they don't want to embarrass themselves. And that doesn't mean it's embarrassing to eat poorly, but they just being the aura around me. So within a session, I would say I try to bring value, and that can mean 100 different things, but that's what I do now. So now, like I said, I'm doing like 35, 40 sessions a week. I partnered with a architecture firm, a large architecture firm, and I'm helping building luxury home residential gyms, right?
Was the architecture firm, was that a client of yours?
No, it's a weird story. So a client of mine who was moving to Florida was like, "Hey, we bought this nice place in Jupiter Island." And I am super into, as you know, I'm super into home design and stuff.
Yeah, your aesthetic is great.
Right. Thank you. And so I was like, "Please, can I send you a few things? Tell me what you like, and I'll send you a few people that I love." They ended up choosing the architect. I get a book in the mail from the architect and a thank you, and I'm like, "Oh, I forgot the check." because I know he's making a lot of money off this. But so right from that point in time, my clients were, of course I want a gym, but I want the architecture firm to work with you. I was like, awesome. And from there it kind of sparked. And through the pandemic, certain clients didn't have equipment, didn't have gyms, didn't have anything. We're converting garages, we're converting basements, rooms. And I loved every part of it. And I was like, all right, I'll work with this company. I'll find this. I think this is great for this house, blah, blah, blah. And now it's like I'm working on that same architecture firm was like, hey, would you want to consult on this other job for us? I'm like,
great.
Yeah, sure. They show me the house. It's a $40 million home, something I've never seen in my life. So I've kind of melded two of my favorite worlds on my own time. I love building my house and designing that aspect with fitness. I'm doing that on the side. And then I'm on the side when I'm still doing 35, 40 sessions a week. So I just drive to clients' houses. I'm lucky enough that I have clients in a small pocket that, I'm still always stacking super close. They're within a mile or two from each other, and I'm driving to the next client. I get to them, and those are my days.
When you work with the architecture firm, does the client pay you, or does the architecture, do they build in your fees and then pay you?
The client will pay me, yeah.
So it's a separate fee to the client.
Yeah.
Cool. There's so much about that I find interesting. I want to go back to the beginning of the story when you were talking about the dinner table. What I heard you describing there was people hold themselves to a different standard when you're around. They're saying, this is the guy who my friend here, who I have immense respect for, they might even be my boss,
right?
Entrusts to help him live the kind of life that I aspire to live. So when that person's around, I'm going to do what I think that person would want me to do, because I want to live that kind of life, and I want them to believe I'm the kind of person who lives that kind of life. And so if even for just a small moment in time, you help them to understand what it would be like to live intentionally.
Sure.
Which I think is super cool.
What I would say with that is, and I've been told this, that I personally believe this, that if you put me in a room, I can kind of mesh really well with anyone. And I would call myself a little bit of more of like a professional connector. Like I know a guy. I got a guy, that kind of thing. And it doesn't matter if I'm in the room with billionaires or, my friends. I feel like I can always move my conversation, my communication, and my demeanor and whatever it is to that level, whatever it may be.
Well, you are speaking the language of, whether you realize it or not, I don't know how much of our content you listen to, but one of our theses is that the primary care connector should be the coach.
Right.
Like right now, a person's out in the marketplace and something starts to bother them. Their shoulder hurts, they're gaining weight, they feel like they're getting old faster than they're aging, whatever it is, right? If they don't have somebody who they can trust, who understands all of the places that they could go to solve this problem, they have to start sampling each of the places like flavors of ice cream.
Sure.
And then deciding which one they like. When the chiropractor is going to say you need adjustments, the physical therapist is going to say you need exercises, the trainer is going to say you need to work out more often, the nutritionist is going to say you need to change your diet, the acupuncturist is going to give you needles, the orthopedist is going to cut, and the physiatrist is going to inject. Right? Like everybody is going to do what they do. And you, the individual at the end of the line, is stuck trying to figure out which one do I need and how much of it do I need. What you're describing by being the connector, both socially and for physical elements, is becoming the most valuable person in these people's lives
100%.
By being agnostic to who they end up paying.
Right.
And that's when you say, I try to bring value every time, I want to make sure people are hearing specifically the value that you're bringing.
Right.
You refer them to a doctor, you don't get paid. You refer them to us, you don't get paid. You refer them to an architect, you don't necessarily get paid.
Right.
You're doing the right thing for the person because you have expertise in the thing that they need, and you're agnostic to who gets paid. That makes you the most valuable person in the room to them.
Let alone, help my client formulate the right questions to ask when they go to their concierge doctor.
Right.
These doctors in the city that are charging boatloads of money per year just to be a doctor, a concierge doctor, and my client's coming back to me and saying, I get more out of what you're saying, what you teach me, than they don't even know anything about nutrition. Or I had to teach them, and then he had to go read something, you know? And it's like, oh my God.
I got a doctor to introduce you to. Doctor, I don't know if you know who Dr. Gabrielle Lyon is.
Yeah, I follow.
But she would be a great contact for you.
100%.
I'll make that intro today.
I'd have plenty of people who would probably love to switch.
I'll make that intro.
But that's kind of like, that's a part of who I am, and even my wife and friends who are trainers. We kind of are all cut from the same cloth. And I don't know what it was about that point in time when we all kind of learned together, but I feel like it's similar. Maybe there's different levels to it between us, but there were similar characteristics between us all that once we left that place, stuck with us. And now some people might be scared to like increase prices and do things like that. And that's just, they've always been that person. And listen, we had a trainer that this reminded me. We had a trainer who was top 10 in the company every year. This Hungarian girl, Hannah, she was amazing. She was like the mom of the place. Cranking out 2,500 sessions, like insane amount of sessions.
That is so many sessions.
I mean, absurd, but very structured, knew exactly, wrote down everything, blah, blah, blah. Were the sessions fantastic? No.
Right.
At all, whatsoever.
But her clients didn't know that, and Equinox didn't care.
Didn't matter. Deathly afraid to move up a tier because of how much money her clients would have had to pay. And that's what happens.
Right. So she got stuck in making $35 an hour when she could have gone up to 70.
The amount of bonuses she was making, she was already making 70, but she could have been making 90.
Right.
You know, and then she finally did it, and she didn't lose a session.
Of course not.
And this is what happens over time. It's like the first person, it took a little bit more to rip the Band-Aid off for her. And my buddy Steve, it took a little bit more. He was within their like their virtual group fitness, like on the screen and stuff. Equinox Plus, they called it.
Okay.
So he was doing that. He moved up the ranks. It took a little bit more to pull him out, and I remember talking to him like 2 weeks out from leaving. I'm like, so is anything different? He's like, no. I'm like, see. What
I'm curious about, because I think that you said it and I know that it's true, is you're trying to bring more every time. And I think that there's this belief that the skill set that you most need to develop to be a busy, successful trainer is just charisma. Just be funny, just make people happy. And I think that there's an element of truth to that. But what makes you referable is not that. No. It's the other stuff. And so the stuff like the connecting that you were talking about. What I'm curious about is, let's talk to a trainer right now who's in a club who is entry. They just got there. They're making the $25 and they're like, you know what? This is pretty good right now.
Sure.
But they know that they want to get to $50, $60, $70, $100 for themselves per hour, if not more. What do they start doing so that they can become the connector in the next year and a half?
I think it takes a lot of experience within doing a lot of sessions. So build up your clientele. Learn how to get your clients results. I think keeping the mentality of always being that rookie or that person who just started, and as much as you don't feel like that, try to keep that when you walk into a room of other people trying to teach you something. And then once you feel like you have the confidence to bring up that cost, I don't know if you're allowed to within your gym, but ask, or, say, hey, I think I can we can increase the session price, whatever it may be. But ultimately, I think it comes from gaining confidence through experience of doing sessions and getting clients results. And
I think you're right about earning more money per session. What I'm more curious about is how does somebody, like, how you didn't walk into that gym with the ability to make those connections for people.
right.
How did you earn the ability to make those connections for people? Like, how do you go from trainer to recommending an architect? How do you go from trainer to these are the questions to ask your concierge doctor? How do you go from trainer to I think that you should go connect with this guy about your car?
I got to know my clients, like I said in the beginning, in and out. And once I understood their goals, their passions, what their family life is like, what their career life is like, I then started thinking about things like, how can I help? What are the things that I can help my client do that they might not be thinking about? Or, you know, what are some of the things that if I showed them this person or this piece of education or this had them read this book or listen to this podcast can get them out of this space that they're in currently? And I just kept doing that within each week and, you know, each session and having certain conversations. And I think a lot of it is communication.
Well, I want to stay on this thread because I think it's super important. I think you do it really well. You mentioned what are other things I could help them with in their life that they're not expecting or looking for, but that I know that they need, right? That's effectively what you said. We call that delivering unexpected value. Like, of course, you have to give good workouts. You have to be on time.
Right.
You have to get results.
These are non-negotiables.
Right.
These are all things like if you're late to a session, come on.
Right.
Like, these are all things that are completely controllable.
Right.
The things that a client isn't expecting, right? Maybe they come in and they're like, hey, my knee hurts or my shoulder hurts. And we hear this all the time. All right, here are a few things. Let's see if we can figure out. And they come in and they're like, I feel so much better. That's a trainer thing. And that's something we can all learn to do is when you go to education, you learn things like that.
Yep.
But the little extras that we're talking about, you have to have a little bit of passion, and you might not get paid for these things.
Not directly.
Like directly. What I'm saying is like, I might be thinking about a client on my drive somewhere else, you know, or because there's a lot of solitude in the car alone, right? Or, you know, as soon as I get home, kick my feet up and like, oh, like, you know, I was just thinking about that. Like, this client can use this or whatever it may be. Or another client talks about something and I can relate that client to the other. And I connect the two of those guys or whatever they're talking about. I bring in that conversation with the next person and things start clicking that way. But it takes a little bit of passion to want to try and help them in every aspect of their life. It has nothing to do with personal training. Go on.
That's the value.
Right.
That's what makes you irreplaceable. I think that so many trainers, so many coaches look at like, if I can get this person to the best technique, if I can get this person the best results, the best before and after photos, I'm going to be the guy everyone wants to hire. That's not true.
Right.
They expect you to do that. The stuff that you're describing right now, connecting client to client for their business, for their personal life, for whatever giving them the book that you read that they mentioned something that you were like, I heard you say this thing. I read about that in this book and I think that you'll really like it. If you don't read the whole thing, just read this chapter.
Right.
That's when they're like, holy, like I've never had somebody pay attention to me in this way.
I'll maybe be listening to a podcast and like there's a snippet of something within that podcast that I'm like, hey, so-and-so, I've recorded this for you. I really think it'll make an impact on you. Just watch this for a second while you warm up.
Right.
Or listen to this while you warm up. And they're like, whoa, like that's pretty deep. Or whatever it may be, like, wow, yeah. Wait, or they'll disagree. And that's sometimes even better. They're like, why do you think that about me? And I'm like, No, I just want to hear what your thoughts are. Something, whatever. It just like starts a conversation, and we, there's many times where I'm with clients and we're just talking about life, like about, where we are in life. Like I have a 2-year-old. My wife can call me right now and tell me the water breaks and we're going. And we talk about family life and things like that. And like now I'm in their house. I say, good morning to their family, see the kids off. And you become a different type of person when you start to look out for not just them, but also their family. And you say, hey, check this out. I think your son would like this, or whatever it may be. And these are all things that like people might overlook, right? I was listening to one of your podcasts with some interviews with some trainers. There was maybe 4 trainers on it. Like I was like, if you don't like the result, if you're getting the results, what does it matter? Well, everything actually matters.
Yeah.
Like that's fine. You can get results, clients' results, but if they don't come back after that, like I've been training clients for 10 years straight, nonstop, just like Josh. They can go off on their own, and it's fine. It is what it is, but they don't want to because they love my sessions. They love being around me. They appreciate it. They get something out of it, and that's what happens.
Well, what you're describing is helping someone develop into a completely independent person who no longer needs you and chooses to work with you anyway.
Right.
To me, that's the gold standard. It's not keeping a client forever. It's getting a client to a place where they could absolutely decide, I don't need to work with you anymore, Scott. And I still want to because I get more value than I'm paying for, despite having complete independence.
And it's not everyone who sees that. Like not every client sees that. Sometimes clients need to be, you need to teach them that, or you need to tell them that.
Sure.
And then something clicks in their mind. They're like, yeah, maybe he's right. One thing within Equinox, we had a statistic that I think people don't think about is something called the over 8 percentage. And their over 8 percentage was how much percentage of your clientele trains over 8 sessions a month. And I had like a super high percentage. It was like 85%. Because all my clients were like 3 or 4 or 5 times a week. There was, and it was something about the sessions that I would get the client to be able to see the value in and say, I want to come almost every day because I can come in on my own and hop on the treadmill and do some weights, but I'm getting so much out of it that I want to pay for it. And I think that's also part of the reason why I do so many sessions. And that's why I also have a lower clientele list, but I'm much deeper with my clients.
Of course.
Right? There's nothing like, hey, come in, barely have a conversation and get out. It's so deep. And that's what happens. How
do you get most of your clients? Like if you needed to get a new client right now, how would you do it?
Which is crazy. It's like, have I sold anything in a long time? No. And it's been a long time.
Meaning since you've added a new client?
No. I mean, I'll add a new client without trying because it's like a daughter or a sister or a friend, but I'm not selling anything because they're already they're coming to you. They know what it costs. They know they want it.
Right. Let's do it.
Right. And I like growing up at like in the trainer world, I always like, what does it take to get to that point? And it wasn't anything that like clicked. I was like, oh, this is it. There was no point in time. Maybe I'm realizing that now. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like, oh, you need to do these 2 things or 3 things, and then all of a sudden it starts to happen. I had a client come to me. Maybe this is a little sale. He say, hey, do you know a Pilates instructor? Again, I'm the connector. What do you need Pilates for? Oh, my daughter's equestrian. She wants to get stronger. I was like, she doesn't need Pilates. She needs me. He's like, okay, when can you start? That's all it took.
But okay. I want to jump out of my chair because that's exactly what I'm talking about. That person had no idea what they needed.
No.
And by the way, if they did need Pilates, if they weren't a fit for you, would you have sent them to Pilates?
Absolutely.
Right.
But listen, it doesn't matter who the client is. I can find something that they can get better at.
Right. But they came to you because they trusted that if you were not the right fit, you would have told them to go somewhere else. They came to you because They thought you would know someone who could help them with Pilates so they could be better on a horse.
Right.
Now, that's everything. Because everybody right now is teaching this Instagram Reels strategy, this strategy. Like, that's not where you're acquiring your 30 to 35 sessions a week at, I don't know what you're charging for them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, it's because you're doing the deep, valuable work with your clients that you're able to acquire their friends and the family.
Right. And I think it's just within, again, how you communicate to the client, how much value you may be able to bring. Say they didn't start training with you yet. It's just, I kept myself at a certain standard, let's say, right? A certain level. I mean, if we go back to the gym, I was engaged to a girl there, and there was people there that didn't even know we were dating. Mm-hmm. It's whenever I was, there might be fun camaraderie. And listen, there's a big aspect of leaving the gym that I miss is the camaraderie of seeing people. Now, there's a gym that we all see each other at every now and then, but it's not the same. No,
it's not like I'm taking my client over here, you're taking your client over there. It's a fun banter.
There is. And that's one main thing that we all miss. Mm-hmm. But then there's also like the solitude of just being by myself in my car driving to the next spot that I love. But what I'm saying is, like, I held myself at a certain standard within the sessions, within each clientele. They talk about me a certain way, and that's probably what happens is they just expect something, right? So when I say she doesn't need that, she needs this from me, he's like, oh, okay, I trust you.
Right.
Right? So you earn that trust, and you build that trust. And, over time, that's what happens. You then have the trust of, hey, you're looking fantastic. Who are you training? Are you still training with Scott? Mm-hmm. And they're like, yeah, I think I want to start with him, or whatever it may be. Hey, my daughter's just getting into this, or my son's just getting into that. I need you to start training with them at least once a week. Mm-hmm. Or a client comes in, hey, I want to start just 2 times a week for now. And then, like, after the first week, they're like, oh, I haven't worked out in so long, I'm so sore. I was like, well, I start selling them on, let's get more sessions in per week. Mm-hmm. You won't be as sore because the time window of how you're sore, and we'll be able to hit a few more things and, all the aspects of that. And now they're training 3-4 times a week. And that's just how you churn out more sessions. And then you build your business off that. And then now, like I said before, if a new client comes in, I don't really want to do more. Mm-hmm. But if I just throw a number out at them and they're like, yeah, I'm like, okay, I need to start making some time for this person. Yes. Client's like, hey, can you train my polo team? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, we'll figure it out. Mm-hmm.
Are you still selling packages, or do you just sell every session at the same price now?
No, packages. I always do it. I like the money up front. Mm-hmm. 24-hour cancellation policy. Right. Keep that always. People need to learn that from the start.
Yep. Boundaries. The stronger the boundaries, the stronger the business.
And people appreciate that.
Yep.
And you know what? There's people who are like, they know it, and they'll cancel like within with just outside the window. Mm-hmm. I'm like, son of a bitch. But that's what happens.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I do packages. I keep it, within my calendar. I know exactly where I'm at, and
right.
I know that's like within the business. I know exactly how much is coming in at a certain point in time.
What's your overrate percentage now?
Oh, if I actually calculated that, mm-hmm. It would probably be 90% easy. Right. Yeah.
Anything I didn't ask you about that you think would be valuable to discuss?
Let's see. I would talk a little bit more about, as someone who is churning out numbers in a club or coaching a ton of classes. Mm-hmm. I would say I would probably ask the question of, like, what makes that person happy? And I think it's like, if you were to ask me that, like, and I was doing all those sessions, I used to think I was happy. And that's what you said when you first started this, and you're like, what is what is doing really good? And I used to think doing really good, meaning doing a ton of sessions, would make me happy. And I think that, you know, a lot of these trainers who are doing really well, right? So now we're talking about the other end of the spectrum, right? We're talking about rookies and people who are just starting. Now we're on the other end of the spectrum. Are they actually happy churning out this amount of sessions, making this much money? Or will they be more happy if they just like did like 10 sessions less a week, and had more time at home and more time for themselves? Because I think that's one thing that the pandemic taught me, was because there was a lot of downtime. And it's like, I've never had this much downtime in my life. I don't even know what to do with myself, you know?
So you had a baby.
And then I had a baby, you know? We're like, if we're not going to travel, let's have a baby.
Right.
Let's not let things stop us. But what I'm saying is, like, to the trainer out there who's crushing it, are you actually happy, or are you just stuck in the mundane part of, because it's easy for you to do all these sessions, to just get through it, get through each day, in and out, go to bed, wake up, do it again all over again, and constantly for years are you actually happy? Or do you need to leave where you're at, charge a little bit more, give better value, be happier yourself? I mean, not until recently have I really like taken care of my body. And I mean that by like, I've always like done some workouts here and there, and it's hard to even say, like, I would say this, like, as a trainer, I was lucky enough to have a good looking enough body. I was thin enough. I was muscular enough. I could do exercises perfect. I always said I was like, I could do 1 to 2 set reps of like anything. It doesn't matter what it is. And the client's like, wow, you do that with such ease. But because I have more time now, even with the 35, 40 sessions a week, I say to myself, now I can like take my own time and like join a different gym and go somewhere else and like, and then be with my family in the entire afternoon. I'm extremely lucky. And I would say to those trainers, like, ask yourself, assess your life right now. Are you actually happy grinding day in, day out? And there's points in time in my own life where I feel like that, but for the most part, you know, I'm very lucky, I would say.
Well, I think that's it's a good thought experiment to end on, because it gives people the opportunity to be introspective about, am I doing this because it's what I want to do and I'm fulfilled by, or am I doing this because it's what I've learned to do?
Right. When you're working for an organization and you're someone who abides by the rules, right, and follows the structure of the company, and you're someone who, you know, likes to lead and likes, like, for example, you're like, you wish you had statistics of how many.
Oh yeah, I would have been like, oh shit, I need to crack into the top 10.
Right.
I would have been out of my mind to not be number 1,
100%,
which would have been unhealthy. Which
I saw what life was for those people.
Not fun. Yeah.
And it's hard not to also want to do it just for the, you know, the aspect of being number 1, because you're that kind of guy, you're that person. And I'm sure a lot of people who listen to this podcast are those types of people. And as soon as I lost that, I missed it for a little bit, and I still kind of miss it, but not having it also helps, you know? Like when you ask me all this, I don't need to keep track of all that. I just need to like know that I'm getting my sessions in and my clients are getting what they need, and I'm happy with my life and I'm working out, and like, as a trainer, to say like I'm finally working out and following my own program or something else, and like it's crazy.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm happy for you. I've enjoyed watching it. I forget what you called it when you first left. Like the sweaty something.
The Sweaty Health. So my wife will run. That's her actual business name. I have had my own since like when I first started. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Well, it's been cool, and I'm excited that you're doing so well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think you're doing a fantastic job with what you're doing. I think that I was coming in here, especially hearing from Josh, and Josh says, give him hell.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to at least, it didn't go this way, but I wasn't sure what would happen. I wanted to be like, you know, are you tired?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you, yeah.
You can ask me that.
Are you tired?
There are elements of what I'm doing that I'm tired of. Generally, physically, I'm tired right now. I just traveled this week. Let me answer that for you in a complete way. I am tired of trying to convince people that there is more that can be had from the fitness industry if the fitness industry gained some self-awareness and did some work to improve the areas where it's inadequate. I am tired of going on a walk on the boardwalk with other people in the fitness industry before we podcast, or not even before we podcast, because that would make people on the podcast sound like they're less than what they claim to be, and that's not true. It's frankly been with people who more often than not are not on the podcast, and asking like, what do you think of that person over there? Oh, they would never. What do you think of that person over there? No way that person's joining a gym. Or gym owners, what do you think of that person? Why wouldn't they join a gym? Like, look, they would never make it a priority. I'm like, I see responsibility there. I'm tired of the industry not seeing responsibility, but instead passing responsibility.
I'll tell you what, that like coming into this, I didn't know what the topic was going to be, and that's why I recommended. I was like, hey, should we do this? Should I bring a client? Blah, blah. You know, those are my favorite.
Of course, they're my favorite. The whole business over there. You saw my wife while we were in there, but in general, if you go in there and you just watch who's walking through, they're the people who don't go to other gyms. Right. So I'm tired of that. That leads to me being tired of trying to acquire clients who value that. Right? Like our business model, I've never said this on the podcast before, so I appreciate the question. Our business model since 2018 has been acquiring clients either to help them get out of pain without going to the doctor, missing the gym, to teach them how to become the coach who can do that for a client, or the gym owner who can employ those coaches and attract that client. Right. I will take those people as they come. What I am much more interested in is opening businesses that serve that client and developing the staff to do it. I'm so inspired by what's happening in Long Beach that it's all that I wanted to do is open more of those everywhere. I would love to partner with our clients to do it. I don't want to do it instead of working with our clients. Right. I love our clients. I would love to do it with them. I am tired of beating the drum of, hey, what you're doing over there, that's bullshit. Like, let's not all jump onto the what valuation is highest right now game. Right. And let's jump into the what is the value intrinsically of the company, not just financially. Because I think that what's missing right now in the industry is something that genuinely solves problems consistently for everybody who joins. And I think that there is a massive blue ocean of both client service and financial gain to be had by putting the focus there. The fact that people think that we're a niche, to me, is equal parts inspiring and alarming. Right.
So what I wanted you to answer was tired of what? And my response would be tired of always trying to be right. And that's not coming from like a bad place. And what that means is exactly everything you just spoke about. Because from the outside looking in, you're very passionate about making sure the industry is doing, from a high level perspective, the right thing. And because of everything we spoke about, like being that connector, being that person of making sure my client asks the right questions of certain doctors. Hey, this happened. Maybe you should go to this doctor, or, that type of person. You seem to be someone who understands it all and have been in different pockets of the industry to realize there is much more to be had and a whole different perspective on how you should look at it.
Yeah, I'm tired of that.
Right.
the truth is the trying to be right part. I got tired of being the person who had to be right, which is different than the person who is trying to. It's different than what I'm doing right now.
100%.
In that, it used to be for me that if somebody was like, I don't want to do it that way, I'm like, well, you're an idiot. But that's not true. Like, there's a million ways to do it that can be effective.
Right.
And let's find the best ones and just elevate them. Now, the part of me that is tired of trying to be right is like, hey, are we not looking around and seeing the obvious failings of our society? And are we not like, I had a conversation with my wife this morning about how many decisions we make on behalf of ourselves and our kids just to live a healthy life without much thought. Where are you getting your meat from? Where, like, what are the foods that come into the house that are like not meat? What's that sprayed with? How are we going to wash it? How many steps are we getting in a day? Did we exercise? Where was the time? Like, how are we talking about that? Who are our friends? There's so much shit that I'm just like, it'd be really easy to live unhealthy.
Oh, it's so easy. And
but
all those
be.
questions you ask yourself are questions a healthy person asks.
But
and
it shouldn't be that hard. It
shouldn't be. But because you do, that's what makes you healthy. And that's what makes you the person you are.
But I'm tired of having to, that's the part I'm tired of having to push.
Right. It's too late.
Yeah.
That's the issue, is that you look around and you say to yourself, it's way too late. I mean, my accountant's like, I say this all the time. He comes to Sam and I, he's like, you spend like double, 3 times as much money on food than other couples. Like, how much is your 2-year-old daughter eating?
Right.
Like, no, it's just like, we like to take care of ourselves and we don't eat out. We're cooking every single meal. That's what I'm talking about. There's so many decisions you do have to make in order to be healthy. And with so much information out there right now, it's so free and easy to follow. It's just, for some reason, it's not getting through to people enough that they're making a big enough change.
I agree. And I think that's because it's not all in the fitness industry, so I don't mean to put it like it is.
No.
The fitness industry leads with fitness, and not everybody is ready for it. And I think that if we could all be more agnostic as to where the person gets the first piece of help that they need, we would find that more people would end up in fitness. Like, have you ever played the Plinko game?
Yeah.
Fitness is the bottom. Right? Like, everyone ends up there if everything else is in line. Right. If their money is lined up, if their self-talk is lined up, if their mental health is lined up, their relationship is lined up, their medical health is taken care of. You think somebody who is mindful about the kind of life that they are living, who is mentally healthy, in a great relationship, financially solvent, is going to just sit around and let themselves get unhealthy? No way. That person's going to be like, how do I keep this going for as long as possible? And they're going to find fitness and nutrition. But what we tried to do, the proverbial we, is tell somebody who's 150 pounds overweight, eat less, exercise more. They're like, cool, man. I work 2 jobs. I'm in a relationship that is not so awesome. All of my friends would excommunicate me if I started doing that. And I don't feel that good about myself. And I'm obviously creating an extreme example.
Right.
But the point is, like, let's find out what that person's dealing with before we just assume they're not making eating right and exercising a priority.
Right. I think a lot of people think of, they think to themselves, when I get to this point in time, I'll be able to do that. I think that's a big play in what stops people from starting.
Well, and I think that the questions that need to be asked at that point are, what do you need to get there? And by the way, it might not be fitness. So if we ask a person like that, why don't you exercise? I can't afford a gym membership. Why not? I work 2 jobs that get paid an average of $14 an hour. And
why do you need a gym?
Sure, reasonable question. But then the next answer could be, I'm too tired, or whatever the case is. Right. Well, okay, what if we could make your $14 an hour go further for you and claw back 2 hours a day? What would you do with those 2 hours? I don't know. Well, then let's get us to climb back 2 hours a day and see what you decide you want to do with it. It's not fitness. I'm going to set that person up with somebody who can help them with their financials. The problem is they can't afford that person. So it starts with, in my opinion, corporations understanding that, wanting to do that for their employees, understanding that long-term, that's what gets the 350-pound person in accounting off of their medications, off of their laser, which is an insurance policy that's more expensive than everybody else's.
And moving up in the company.
Yes, all the things.
Everything starts there. But we're not asking the right questions.
Agreed.
And that's where it all comes down to from this entire thing is communication. And you're right when it comes to big corporations. And I think the problem is they're churning out numbers. And they feel like people are expendable. So I'll move a new person in, and it doesn't matter if I lose them or not. So just follow the system. And they're not thinking about the person themselves.
Well, it takes the right executive. It takes somebody who's like, I want to do it because it's the right thing for the people who help grow this business. And then I think that what happens for that business is they see, holy shit, our staff retention has gone up. Our ability to recruit great staff has gotten easier. Our healthcare spend has drastically reduced. Our spend on things like sick days and missed work is down. Our performance is up. All of that happens when we bring the bottom of the company up. And I think that it's hard.
It's very hard, right? I have a conversation like this with clients because we've spoken about like when you're in a company that makes sales, for example, right? The top 10, 20% of the salesmen are making the most amount of money, and they're making the most amount of money for the company. And that bottom half or the bottom 80%, you're doing your best to manage them. Whether it may be a mentorship program from that person and that person gets paid, but that's what it is. And in order for you to keep pushing forward and making more sales, the company just keeps promoting those top people. And that's just what happens. It keeps churning over, and it keeps snowballing in that way. And then if a CEO or executive company or whatever, C-suite people come in and say, we're going to hire Active Life. It's hard for them to accept the fact that they might make less for a little bit.
I think the bigger and reasonable fear is, what if this person who is putting wealth over health in every aspect, who is a top performer for me in a sales company, a top performer might be somebody who's 300, 350 pounds.
Sure.
Who's chain smoking, who has no relationship with their significant other, who's an absent father, who is going to die 20 years earlier than they need to, and they're going to be disabled 10 years before that because they pour so much into their sales. What happens if we get that person healthy? Like you were talking about before with the person who, are you a happy trainer doing 35, 40 sessions a week? Or you just think that that's what happiness is? What if we get that person so healthy that they're like, you know what? I could happily make 2/3 of what I'm making right now, prioritize my health, my family, vacations, and all this kind of stuff. Well, that could cost the company top line money.
Sure.
That's why it takes the right executive to say, I don't care, because the aggregate is going to work when everybody in this company is happy and healthy.
Exactly. And you have to look at it like from that top-down approach and that view all the way up there to see that.
Well, let's start talking to some of your executive clients.
Let's get there.
All right. Scott, I'm going to make sure people know where they can find you in the show notes.
My Century Old Home, at My Century Old Home.
That is not where they would have expected to find you.
Never. But you know what? I was never someone... I was a person who loved social media, and I still love it. But that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, because you don't need it to acquire clients, man.
Right.
All right. Turn pro.
Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Active Life podcast. Please remember, give us a hand, rate it, review it wherever you listen to shows. We are on a mission to humanize the healthcare industry by professionalizing the fitness industry to empower the individual to live a life unlimited by the way that their body looks, feels, or performs. If you are inspired by that mission and want to jump on the wagon, find us anywhere. Active Life Professional on Instagram, ActiveLifeRx on Instagram. Come to me personally at Dr. Sean Pastuch. We want to welcome you onto the train. We want you to be a part of the mission. We want to offer you the opportunity to pursue this right alongside us. We're inspired by your effort, and we hope to help you in your journey. Turn pro.